This episode of Bulletproof Cash Flow is brought to you by Realty Dynamics. Learn how people like you can build substantial passive income while creating wealth for the long term through real estate investing. Visit rdyne.com. That's RDYNE.com.
So you're either buying a house or you're renting a house. There's only two ways to get in a house, or you're living in mom and dad's house, but let's throw that out too. So if you can't get a loan to buy a house, that means there's a lot of pressures put on rent because everybody just became a renter by default because nobody's really loaning any money. So when there's a lot of pressures on rents, what happens to rents during a recession? They go up.
Working because you want to, not because you have to, is financial freedom. And we want to help you create that. Welcome to the Bulletproof Cash Flow Show. We're going to teach you how to achieve lifetime financial freedom through real estate investment. Your host is a multifamily syndicator and property developer. He's done deals reaching into the hundreds of millions of dollars. You'll hear from experts in all aspects of real estate investment, finance, development, and management. Everything you need is right here. This is the Bulletproof Cash Flow Show. And this is your host, Augustino Pintus.
Hey everyone, it's Augustino. Now on the show, we like to explore ways of building solid bulletproof cash flow through real estate investing. Now, one of the ways to do this is in the single family space. Now, there are many other asset classes in real estate, but it's all about scale. It's always about scale. You don't need to have a lot of money to start. You just need to be willing to do whatever it takes to build your dream one deal at a time. Well, our next guest knows all about this. He is a real estate veteran with a lot of insight and experience in this space. He has been a self-employed real estate investor for over 25 years, and he kicked off his investing career at the age of 23 when he read Nothing Down by Robert Allen. Now, from there, he went on to buy over 2,500 houses in and around San Antonio, Texas, primarily using owner financing. Now, that's an average of over one house every 4 days for 20 years, right? It's a lot of houses. All right. Now today, he specializes in owner financing properties to people that are pretty much left behind by the legacy lending institutions and the banks. Now he's perfected a method of achieving cash flow without having to be a landlord and without having to rehab properties. He's mastered the art of raising private money and the classic nothing down deal that made him financially independent and shares his knowledge with others. He's the author of the best-selling book, My Life in 1,000 Houses, and is the host of the 1000houses.com podcast. With all that, I'd like to welcome Mitch Stephen to the show. Mitch, thanks for coming on, bud.
Hey, thank you, Augustino. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes. I'm super excited to have you on, man. Now, guys, if you like what Mitch has to say, you can reach him via his contact page at 1000houses.com. That's 1000houses.com. Okay, Mitch, go ahead and tell us just a little bit about your journey and how you got started in all this.
Well, everything happened to me by accident. I bought a little condo to live in that was seller financed to me because I was a bartender. I had made cash. Then saw, this was a little efficiency, one bedroom, tiny apartment converted into condos. It was not fancy at all. It was $23,000 in 1983. And then a 2-bedroom, 2-bath down the road condo became available. And I bought it and rented out my first, and I rented out one of the rooms, and I started to figure out, hey, I'm making $50 a month to own these two places. As long as everybody paid, which that was a whole nother lesson. I was having trouble getting people to pay because I was not a professional landlord and leaseor, so I was just taking whoever said they wanted it, which proved to be a lot of problems. And then someone made me an offer to buy them. And I looked up one day and I had more money in the bank than I'd ever seen in a bank account before, ever. It wasn't that much money, but to me, it was the world. It was, $40,000 in my account. I'm making $35,000 a year. I mean, it's like over a year's worth of wages. And I thought, what did I do and how do I replicate that? And that's how the journey started,
Nice.
And then I started reading books like Robert Allen's Nothing Down. And, the title alone, I ran to that book because, how to acquire assets with no money. I thought, if having no money is what's required, then I can buy this whole town because I'm broke as hell. So, and then he started to open up my mind that there are ways to make money with no money. When you don't have money, you've got to substitute your expertise and your time in place of money. And you got to go get yourself in a position where people with money either need you out of the way or want to partner with you. So I became an expert at that. So for the first years in business, I was really a professional deal writer, upper contract maker, and then I would use my position to make money.
Right. So, and that's really what it comes down to is like applying some sort of creative financing, right? I guess is learning what the other person needs and try to match what they need and try to do it with no money out of your pocket is what it sounds like, right?
Right. So I bought my first 100 houses. You see this town behind me? I have the silhouette of this town behind me. That's San Antonio, Texas. In 1996, when I quit my job and was going full time with that 40,000, which basically gave me a year's worth of money in the bank. So I decided I'm just going to draw that 40,000 out at the same pace that I live on. So, the past year. And so it should last me a year. And if I fail, then I'll find another bartending job someplace else because, I was looking for that job when I found it. It's not that hard to get. I bought 45 houses that year, but I bought mostly on credit cards because houses in this town in 1996 were 8,000, 10,000, 12,000, 15,000, 20,000, 25,000 in the lesser parts of town. South side, west side, east side. And I learned really quickly that back in the, that's not that way now. Okay. So I can't really buy houses on credit cards now. They're too expensive, but Robert Allen taught me to think out of the box. Then, then I learned that the credit card companies, if you had good credit, would just send you the card. They check your credit and they send you the card. They weren't measuring how much unsecured money you could get your hands on at the time. That's if you had good credit, you just got the card with all the cash advantages like you were a millionaire. And so I applied for 75 credit cards in 2 weeks and I got 55 of them. And I went around town buying houses. I need 10,000 off this card to buy the house. I need 5,000 off this card for the rehab. And I bought my first 100 houses like that. Zero down, no money out of my pocket. Classic Robert Allen technique, thinking how he was thinking. And I would sell those houses. I would owner finance those houses and create a note. And then I would sell the note for a very little discount before I even collect the first payment. And I would make 15, 20, sometimes $25,000 a pop. And I did it 100 times in a row as fast as I could.
Wow. That's, it takes some guts to do something like that. And just like I said, you can't do that anymore. You can't do it in today's market.
I was reading about assets and good debt and bad debt, and I was learning about that too. I mean, when you told people, my wife almost divorced me because I was sneaking to the mailbox trying to get these credit card bills every morning, and one morning I missed, and Wells Fargo said I owed them 200 grand. Well, I owed about 350 grand if you wanted to find the other credit cards, but I missed that one. And my wife literally had her car packed because to her, credit card debt was bad. It didn't matter that with that $200,000 of credit card debt, I had $400,000 worth of free and clear houses ready to go. You just needed a little bit, Little did I even know back then. I didn't even need to fix them to make money.
Yeah.
I didn't know that yet.
Yeah. But there's nothing wrong with using credit cards.
Oh, I mean, good debt makes more money than it costs.
Yeah.
Period.
That's right.
Doesn't matter where that debt is. Yeah. And so I stood in front of her car until she would give me 60 seconds to explain. You're leaving me because you think I'm crazy and you think I'm a gambler and you think I've gambled our whole thing. But so let's just put it in your terms, Mrs. Stephen. You are leaving me in the middle of a poker game, which is a true gambling game. I'm not gambling. I know what those houses were worth when I paid for them. And I knew they were worth a lot more money. In poker, you don't have that luxury of knowing anything. You just know what you have in your hand. And right now I got 5-card draw and I got 5 cards in my hand and I got $200,000. I didn't tell her I actually had $350,000 on the table. I said, I got $200,000 on the table and I got 2 cards that I want to replace from the dealer. And you're leaving me before I get my 2 cards. That's just stupid. You can leave me when I lose. But what if I win? So she got out of the car and said, you better win. And of course, I won big, and I've been winning big for the last 30 years. But, That's how hard people don't want to understand credit card debt.
Yeah.
If it's because to them it's just automatically bad. To me, it was the only money I could get my hands on. And I saw all these deals. So now today, how you would use credit cards is use it to do the rehab. Get one of the 0% interest, 0% for 6 months, for 12 months, for 18 months, and do the rehabs with your credit cards. This makes it real easy to go get a loan from a hard money lender. I need 50 to purchase it, and I'm going to cover the 20 myself. I really need 70, but I'm going to cover 20 myself. And when I get done, the house is going to be worth 140. So I just need 50 in the first position from a hard money lender because I'm using my credit card for the 20 rehab. And that's where all the risk is in the loan for the hard money lender anyways, is do you know how to dispense this money and get what you're paying for out of a rehab? Well, when they don't have to worry about that, it gets really easy to get hard money.
Yeah.
And you don't have to pay interest on $20,000, $30,000.
Hey, Augustino here, and I would love to connect directly with you. Text the word books to 844-428-1344 to receive weekly book recommendations from me. I think what it comes down to is building the right habits to even use credit card debt, because I think, that many people let the credit card debt get ahead of them. And I did the same sort of strategy to get me through school.
I would take the credit cards, and if I spent $1 on that credit card for 123 Main Street, then it stayed taped in the folder of 123 Main Street. So there was no question about what was on it and what house needs to pay it back. And whenever I sold 123 Main Street or sold the note, they would put all the money in my bank account, and then I just make a phone call. Hey, Mrs. Stephen, you need to take the credit cards out of the inside of the folder of 123 Main Street, call them up, find out how much we owe, cut them a cashier's check, and send it in a certified signed receipt envelope. So they have to sign for it. There's no lying about when it arrived. And we did it 100 times in a row till my bank finally asked me, what the hell are you doing? And I told them, they said, well, let us just give you a line of credit.
Because now you had the assets. You built it up.
So let me explain my basic deal so the people know. Here's a basic deal. I'm just using some numbers I know that I know the ins and outs of. So don't pay attention to the numbers or the values of the numbers as much as the theory. First of all, I need to establish what I can sell a house for before I can even go in and negotiate to buy a house. But I'm going to sell with seller financing. And the seller financing value, or the OFV, and I think I might have coined that moniker, the OFV. You have the ARV, you have the Mayo. I've coined the OFV, which is the owner finance value, which is arrived at by taking the rent and trying to figure out a sales price and a down payment formula that if this renter across the street from my house buys my house, after he gives me a down payment, he will have the same monthly payment as he was paying for rent. In other words, I'm trying to sell this house in this neighborhood. If the rent's $1,000 for a 3.2, then my 3.2, the question is, what do I have to sell this house for? How much down payment if I'm getting a 10% down payment, what's the owner finance value of this house so that the guy can move across the street and change his rent payment of $1,000 into a mortgage payment for $1,000? Principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. And so here's a formula, and you'll want to write this down. You take the rent, you minus, and then parenthesis, monthly taxes plus monthly insurance, close parenthesis. And that will give you how much money this renter has for P&I, principal and interest. Because out of that, let's say that $1,000 he's paying for rent, if 100's for taxes and 50's for insurance, neither one of us own that money. You know what I mean? That's going. So in this formula, 1,000 rent minus 150 taxes and insurance monthly equals $850. That's how much this guy has for a principal and interest payment. Now I'm going to multiply that times 115. It's a multiplier, and it represents 10%, 30 years as terms. Okay? You could, instead of doing the 115 multiplier, you could go to a mortgage calculator and you could plug in $850 as the payment, 10% as the interest, 30 years for the term, and solve for the balance, and you'd figure out how much this guy could borrow and have an $850 payment. Or you could just use that multiplier on houses under 300 grand. It'll be really close. And you can use a dollar calculator and figure this out and sitting in front of a house in 5 minutes. And so You multiply by you multiply 850 times 115, and it comes out to be $97,750. That's how much this guy can borrow at 10%, 30 years, and have an 850 payment. By the time he pays the 150 for the taxes and insurance, he's right back to the 1,000 he's paying for rent across the street. Okay, so if he can borrow $97,750, that's $98,000 in my book. I round. I'm not dealing in these weird numbers. I always round up or down in my favor. In this case, we're talking about sales price, so I'm going to round up to $98,000. That's about how much he can borrow. So if they can borrow $98,000 and have a payment of $1,000 when it's all said and done, what does that make the owner finance value? Well, I got to collect at least a 10% down payment. So you need to add 10% on top of that 98, but I don't ever shoot for minimum. So I'm going to add 12% on top, and you're going to come out with a number that looks really close to $110,000. And that's what the owner finance value of this house is for a man who's paying $1,000 across the street, who could never get a loan to save his life from an institution. Illegal alien, green card, no green card, gets paid cash as a bartender, whatever the reason is, he can't get a traditional loan, hasn't had 2 years on the job, whatever. This is what he's willing to pay. Now, in the recession, I was buying houses for $27,000 and selling them 100% over the market. Comps clearly said the house was $27,000, but when I backed into the rent formula, it said the house was worth $59,000. So I've sold houses 100% over the market where the comps were, there was 30 comps in the neighborhood that clearly said, because it was a recession, banks stopped loaning money. So what happens to the houses the prices of houses when banks stop loaning money during a recession? They plummet, the prices plummet because the 30 comps in the neighborhood were all cash buyers because it was a recession. If you don't have cash, no bank's loaning any money because they're clammed up in a recession. They're not actually closed, but they'll just keep asking you for another piece of paper and they'll never consummate the loan. They have put on hold their efforts, but they won't tell you that, but they are. And so you can go in if you have the cash or if you have private lenders and you could buy these houses for 27. Then you can do the rent formula and find out that you could sell it for 59. And my average days on market selling my owner financed homes with private debt underneath was 9 days. Over the last 100 houses I did in the last 100 houses, I averaged 9 days on the market, selling 105% over the market, but in line with the rents. The payment was in line with the rents. And so this renter says to himself, I can keep paying rent, and the rent's going to go up every year, and I'll never have anything. And at the end of 30 years, God only knows what rent will be, but I'll still own nothing. Or I can give this man $10,000 or $15,000 of my money. I can become the owner of this house. And at some point, the recession ends and the prices get back to normal, right? Those houses were selling for $59,000 before the crash. But when the recession happened, the prices fell because banks quit loaning, but the rents didn't fall. The rents were still the rents. And a matter of fact, so I base my price of my seller financed home on the rents. And when no one can buy a house during a recession, what kind of houses do people coming into the city, what do they have to get? They have to get into a rent house. If they're either under a bridge, so let's just throw that scenario out because they're not enough to matter. Small percentage of people. So you're either buying a house or you're renting a house. That's only two ways to get in a house. Or you're living in mom and dad's house, but let's throw that out too. So if you can't get a loan to buy a house, that means there's a lot of pressures put on rent because everybody just became a renter by default because nobody's really loaning any money. So when there's a lot of pressures on rents, what happens to rents during a recession? They go up. So I have the only appreciating sales price because I'm offering seller financing that's in line with the rental payments. I'm buying at the low of the low. And then my sales price is continuing to go up in the middle of a recession when everything says the prices are falling. My price is going up because my price is tied to the rents. It's a crazy dynamic. And so here's what happens. You boom in the bad times and you do good in the good times, but you boom in the bad times. If you have private money to buy your houses. I was buying a house a day in the recession in 2010. I bought a house a day for 45 days till I scared myself. I bought 45 houses in a row till I scared myself. because I never ran out of money, and I could get the money like that because I had private lenders. And my commitment to my private lenders is I'll never borrow more than 65% of what I can seller finance the house for on that day that I sign for your money. And I only average borrowing 58% in a first lien position. So I never ran out of money. Right now, on the 1st of this month, I'll make payments on $26 million. And all these private people, 100,000 of their money's on this first lien in this house, and another 80,000 is on a first lien on this house, and another 50,000 is on a first lien on this mobile home and land, and another, if they have 500,000 to give me, they don't give me 500,000 and say, hope you make your payments. I say, look, we'll get it out one deal at a time. And so I'm calling to say, until we get up to about your number, maybe we'll be a little less, or maybe you'll have to put in just a tad more, or maybe you can't put in a tad more. That's all you got. So we'll get up close to that number, whatever you have to get out, but we'll get it out one deal at a time. And every deal stands on its own. I have $26 million of 15 years and 8% non-recourse, collateral only, wrappable money. And wrappable is really important in the seller financing conversation, is because I got to buy this money with OPM, but I got to be able to sell it on payments without having to pay off my underlying debt, which means the mortgage that my buyer owes to me is wrapped around the mortgage that I owe to my private lender. They make their $850 payment to me. I make my $350 payment to them, and I keep the $500 in the middle. Let's use those numbers. I got a house. I figured out $110,000 is what I could pay for it based on the rents. So let's say I end up buying this house for $55,000, 50 cents, and that's really my goal, is to have have double what I owed back to me. So I sell the house for $110,000. They put down $12,000. They financed the 98, which, at 10% for 30 years makes them at $850 a month principal and interest payment, plus the 100 and the 50. So now they're right at the 1,000 they're paying rent. I owe $350 to my guy, and he owes me $850 principal and interest. So he sends me the $850. I take $350 out. I give it to my lender. I keep $500 in the middle. Okay. I average about just a hair under $500, but let's use $500 as a easy number to multiply and use. I got 300 people owe me a mortgage every month at $500 a month positive cash flow. How much money am I making per month in positive cash flow? 300 times $500 is $150,000 a year. Okay? And that money's coming in every month, and I am not a landlord. If the air conditioner breaks, it is not my air conditioner to fix. It's their air conditioner. I sold them the house on payments. They are the owner of the house. So not only did I pick up the $12,000 and put it in my left-hand pocket, because I borrowed 100% of the $55,000 that I bought the house for. I'm actually making 2% on my borrowed money because I borrowed it at 8%, and I'm loaning it out at 10. So I have a $26 million 2% CD on all the money I borrowed. And then on that $45,000 or whatever I have above what I owe, I'm making the full 10% on that spread. And I got paid $12,000 cash to make that happen.
So I mean, the process is clearly down. You got that down, it sounds like. Now, but how are you finding properties these days? I imagine like markets across the United States, it's just tough finding single family homes. I mean, it's not impossible. It's just a little bit tougher these days than probably what it was back then.
Well, it's as tough as it's ever been. Yeah. It's as tough as it's ever been. Yeah. And I bought 50 properties. I won't say houses because some of them might have been land or mobile homes and land or a small commercial building or whatever, but I bought 25 houses in January and 14 in February. So I'm real close to, 2.5 months into the year. I'm already going to be at about 50 transactions, acquisitions. Nice. I average buying about 100 a year throughout my career. Which, by the way, You do not have to do 100 houses a year to be a mega success in your financial statement at all. And I want to be very clear about that. I'm a veteran. I started out at a different time. I started out with a different skill set. I mean, don't try to compare yourself to me, but try to think about the strategy is what I'm saying. Because if you only buy 2 or 3 houses a year and you're a guy making $100,000 a year at a job, I mean, you're going to pass your job pretty quick.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I think everyone's first goal should not to be a multimillionaire or to do 1 billion houses or to have a bunch of money in the bank. I think if you're asking humble little old Mitch Stephen, and this is how I got through it. My goal wasn't to make $1 million or to make some big business plan. My goal was to get, in 1996, was to get $3,500 a month coming in that I didn't have to work for every, 5 days a week, 4 weeks a month. Okay. I needed $3,500 mailbox money that would just come in. And I started studying how to get that done. Because that's what I made at my job in 1996. I didn't make very much money. Even in 1996, it wasn't a big job.
So now,
and the reason why this is important is because once you replace your income, whatever that is, $5,000 a month or whatever it is, once you have that coming into the mailbox, you can quit that job because your basic needs are covered now. And that will free up 2,600 hours a year that you can use to get wealthy.
Yep.
If that's in the cards for you, if that's what you want to do. Maybe you don't want to get wealthy because not everybody wants to be wealthy. Not everyone's money driven to that degree, that they want to be a multi-millionaire, whatever, which is fine. But I'm just saying, free up that 2,600 hours a year so that you can become the person that you're supposed to become. If you're supposed to be a business mogul, then be a business mogul. If you're supposed to do missionary work in some foreign country, then do that. But you got 2,600 hours to figure it out.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I still like single family. Like we do, obviously, like we're talking in the green room. We do a lot of multifamily, we do development, we do net lease, we do all that fun stuff. But these days, single family, it's tough to find, but those deals are still out there. And just like you said, to your point, you don't need to have 100 of these things to be spitting out cash flow. A nice handful of these things could possibly
will change the normal person's life.
Yeah.
Just a handful will change the normal person's life. But look, you don't just walk into being a landlord or walk into being an owner financier or walk into being a wholesaler. You can try to just walk in if you want, but don't be surprised if the street kicks your ass up and down.
Yeah.
The street's a tough place to learn.
Yeah.
I tell everyone I graduated from La Calle U. I'm actually going to go get a graduation ring. And I'm going to put La Calle University on it. La Calle means, the street in Spanish. So, but it's the most expensive education you'll get. And I almost quit a career that I didn't know it yet, but was going to make me millions over the next 2.5 decades, 3 decades. It was going to make me millions. I almost quit because I didn't catch on fast enough. And the lessons were very painful. $10,000 lessons and $20,000 lessons. You can't... I didn't have much money and I couldn't suffer these things very long. Luckily, when I made a $10,000 mistake, I'd make a $20,000 positive move so I could give up 10 grand to pay for the mistake and still come out a little bit. But it could have gone much different.
Yeah.
So this is why coaches are important. Coaches are important because they'll keep you from making some really amateur mistakes.
Yeah.
You just don't know what you don't know if you haven't been in the business for 25 years. There's a lot of shit you don't know.
It's totally worth doing the coaches too. It's just to your point. It's like you can easily go sideways in a deal if you don't know what you're doing, and you can either...
Yeah, and a coach can easily show you where you're missing out on 20 grand because you're not trained to look there.
That's right.
You're stepping right over 10 grand every deal you did because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, that's right.
And it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, most people start out wholesaling, right? And I didn't. I was seller financing and seller of the note, which I'm a real oddity. But, seller financing is just writing up a contract, getting a position in a contract, and selling that very valuable position for a fee. And then it goes on from there. I would pick one strategy and really drill down on it to make sure it's the strategy for you and your market. And then I would get as much free as I could. And then I would pay for some courses from some experts in that field. And then when I was sure that was my strategy, I would hire the guy that's done it over and over and over again and is still doing it today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And do your homework on that guy. Make sure who you're going to get, because a lot of times you'll pay these guys $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, and then they sub you out to some underling who's maybe done 10 deals, maybe. Or you could hire someone like me, and I don't know if you're in the game for coach or not. I'll throw my hat in the ring, but pick me or don't pick me. I'm just telling you how to pick a coach. You could hire someone like me, and I only take like 12 people a year on one-on-one, because when you call, I'm going to answer the phone. When you start talking about your deal, I'm going to take my 27 years worth of experience and apply it.
Yeah.
The person who's bought 10 houses doesn't have that to apply.
That's right. That's right. It's worth spending the money, and I've talked about it on this show a bunch of times, like spend the money, invest in yourself to find the right mentor and have them guide you.
The mistake is people spend the money with the wrong person, and they usually they only have the nerve to do that once, and then they get a bad guy.
Yeah.
You got to do the research on the guy that you want to hire, like hard.
That's right. That's right. Now,
because when you're first out of the gate, you don't got 10 grand to lose. You don't have 25 grand to lose. You're barely figuring out how to come up with that.
That's right. Now, what are the most common misconceptions about doing these sorts of deals then? Obviously, a guy who's done 10 deals is not going to know what you know. So what would you say is some of the most common misconceptions as a guy that's done this for a very long time?
Well, the one thing that you can't get wrong is what is the after repaired value? And right behind that, if you underestimate the repairs, you've messed up that number. So the after repaired value and the cost of repairs is the two most dangerous calculations you'll ever do, because if you get them wrong, you've bought the house on the entirely wrong premise.
Yeah.
So those are the two things. Another one I see a lot is people think that they have to have money to buy these houses. If you don't have money, then you've got to study strategies that you can work into this system with no money. There's strategies that works. I can start rattling them off, but right off the bat, if you don't have the money, you become a professional deal finder, contract writer. You get things, you're a professional ARV, you're a professional at doing the after repaired value. You got to become a professional at what repairs cost, and then you're a professional at writing contracts at much discount prices, and then you partner with a guy with the money. You give him up half if you have to.
Yeah.
Half of 20,000 is a lot better than 100% of nothing. If you're smart, don't partner up with a money man that's a doctor that does surgery all day. Partner up with a money man that's flipped 150 houses. Partner with that guy. Because not only will you get his money, but you'll be associated with him, and you'll tap his network and you'll tap his brain, and you'll learn a whole bunch of shit just going to lunch with this guy.
That's right.
If you go to lunch with a surgeon who loaned you the money to buy the house, he ain't going to tell you anything.
Yeah, you better not mess it up. You better get the deal right. Yeah, you better get the deal right too.
You'd be better off to go to the top guy in your town and give him 60% and you work for 40% and just tell him to tell me, I'll do whatever you say. I'll be your legs, I'll be your arms, I'll be your eyes. You won't have to leave your chair. Just tell me what to do. If you do 15 houses with that guy and only make 30% per house, you have made money while you were getting an education.
Yeah.
Holy shit, there's a concept. These people go to college and pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to get a college degree, and they come out, don't know anything, and then they got to pay it back.
Yeah. So I think, to sum that up, it's like you really need to apply yourself and don't get greedy. Don't get greedy with the deals. Never get greedy.
Well, just know that there's some time in the trenches. If you have to give up some money from a deal so that you can get an education will never be free. You're either going to pay the street, or you're going to pay the partner, or you're going to pay the coach.
Someone's getting paid.
Someone's getting paid. And the street doesn't care how much. The street will take everything you own. Yeah. The street will even get you put in prison if you do some things wrong.
Yeah.
They don't care. The street don't care.
So now, how would you recommend for someone listening right now to find that strategy that they really should apply? Because, like, to your point, there's a bunch of different ways of doing this, of skinning this cat, so to speak. how does someone find the strategy? How does someone determine what is the right, I guess, choice for them to make? Like, do you have any tips on how to do that?
Yeah, I mean, like, narrow it down to three. I don't know, apartment syndication, single family landlord, wholesaling. You know what I mean? I mean, everyone's going to start wholesaling. Really, you probably should just forget the conversation. Just learn how to wholesale some properties. Buy it for X and sell it for $2,000 or $3,000 more, and prove that you can turn a profit. I don't even care how much, just the littlest profit. Because then your confidence and your some of your limited beliefs will drop off.
Yeah,
it's always about your limiting beliefs. I've done over 2,500 houses, multi, whatever, millionaire. Who cares? I still have limiting beliefs. Augustino has limiting beliefs, I guarantee you. Because the further you go, there's always a limiting belief holding you from the next level. Elon Musk went so far, he's even eliminated a limiting belief that he can get to Mars. But when he gets to Mars, there'll be another one.
Yeah.
There'll be another limiting belief. Now, knowing him, he'll blow right through it. But there's always another limiting belief. So one thing that coaches help you do, and what doing deals even at the smallest level give you confidence and start to shoot down, or you start to recognize, wow, I was so afraid of that, and now it's nothing. I'll never be afraid of it again. Right? Most people don't know how to raise private money. They have all these excuses. I'm too young. I've never bought a house myself. I have bad credit. I had a bankruptcy. I got a criminal record. I'm unexperienced. Who's going to loan me money? No one really gives a shit. It's not about you. It's about the deal.
Yeah.
What's backing their money? What's the collateral? How much is it worth? It's not about you.
Right.
It's about the deal.
It's about the deal.
And what you offer the investor, and what you offer the lender, I got to be careful of the words here. What you offer the lender and what the lender gets if you don't perform. And if you can satisfy those little questions, then you're off to the races. That's why my Private Money Changes Everything course, I can show you how to do it, but the first thing that I have to do is I have to eliminate your limiting beliefs that you're worthy of getting a loan from somebody. Because right now you're not. You don't think you are.
Yep. And
I got to get through that first. So sometimes coaches are as much psychological coaches as they are meat and potato buy a house coach. You know what I mean? Sometimes we're working on things that don't even have anything to do with a house. It's just have to do with your brain.
Oh, yeah. No, the coaches are supposed to find your blind spots and really help you identify them and coach on what you need to do to get over those blind spots. That's usually what it is. It's getting over the limiting beliefs, establishing the goals, and then defining what the steps are to achieve those goals. It sounds easy when you just say it and spout it off in a bunch of sentences, but the actual work involved is tough. It's a lot of hard work.
It takes time, and most people don't have the patience. Especially the younger generations that are around right now, they want everything now. It's like if they don't go out and make $50,000 on their first deal, they don't want to do the business. I'm like, my God. The worst thing that can happen to a guy, and I've seen it happen several times, is they go out and they make $100,000 on their first deal. I'm like, oh no, this is going to be a train wreck.
Yeah.
Because he thinks it's easy when they got lucky. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was years into this business before I made 97,000 was the most I made on a house at one time. And even that happened like 7 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. I wasn't in it for the home runs. I was in it for the singles, the doubles, and the triples. And eventually, the singles and the doubles, I was in it for the singles and the doubles. And then you can't help but hit a couple of triples. And every now and then you'll hit a grand slam. And you won't even be looking for it. It'll just, because you're out there being active, it'll roll in. But you also got to have the mentality that if you have the, it's too good to be true mentality, and you walk around saying that to yourself all the time, then you'll never find that $250,000 profit. Because I've had a lot of things happen that were too good to be true. So you got to temper that, like, yeah, it looks too good to be true. Let me start finding out where the bones are buried in this deal. Where's the contamination? What's going on? And then you get to the end and you say, man, I've run every trap I know. I don't see anything wrong with this deal. But let me call a couple of my smart investor friends and see if I'm missing anything. And then tell them, this is everything I've done. I've checked all this stuff. And they go, you know, go, Mitch, I want you to go dig a hole 3 feet deep and 3 feet wide in the back left-hand corner of the lot and call me back. I do it, and I call him back and go, how in the hell did you know that was buried there? I said, because I got 30 years of experience, and I know what this guy's trying to do to you. I know. Yeah. I can tell by what's going on. You know, so, okay, I didn't know what I didn't know. So I love the seller financing strategy. When I go to rent, I personally choose storages, like boat storages on dry land right out by the lake, or household storage, or covered parking, or open parking, or semi-truck parking. I mean, I wanted to be a landlord for those kind of properties. And so I started specializing in a second thing then. And that happened by accident. I mean, a realtor called me and said, somebody died here at the lake. They got 15 little bass boat stalls in front of a park at Comel Park. You want to buy them? I said, well, how much do they want for them? They said, he wants $8,000. This is 1990, whatever.
Wow.
$8,000 for 15 little stalls, 10 by 25, corrugated aluminum, dirt floors, chicken wire dividers. How much do they make? Well, they're bringing in $25 a piece. I do the math. He says, but I think everyone else is charging $45. This guy was old, and, he was in bad health the last 5 or 6 years. He never raised the rents. The rents are really, let's just say 50 for easy math. So now I got 15 units I could get up to $50 a month for. That's $750 a month. It only takes about 14 months to get my $8,000 back. So I went and got a 0% introductory credit card for 6 months, and I bought the deal. And every time I collected the $750, I threw it at the credit card. And then about month 5, I transferred the balance to another 0% credit card and reopened another 6 months with another company. And then when I got to 5 months, I transferred to another one. But by that time, I didn't have any debt. Shortly after the third one, I paid off. So I started my career in 1991 with 15 boat stalls. Today I have 1,300 doors around the lake in 14 locations. And that's what we call, Jack Boss called, your forever cash. Those deals end when you say they end. You got one-time cash, temporary cash, and forever cash. One-time cash, fix and flips, wholesales, buy one property, get one check, over, done. Temporary cash, pick up $10,000 for a down payment, clear $500 a month for 8, 9, 10, 15, 20 years, but sooner or later that note expires or gets paid off. Temporary. Take all the money I make from one-time cash events and temporary cash events and got to buy into a forever cash strategy, like what Augustino does, or like storages for me. He buys apartment complexes or single-family houses or whatever you want to buy, but they're yours. And they end when you say, because you're charging rent. I chose storage units.
Yeah. And I love the storage unit space. It's a great space. Yeah.
And people say that too, the negative noise. Well, they're all over the place. They're overbuilt. That their moment's come and gone. It's too competitive. All these REITs are buying these things at 4% cap rates and 3% cap rates and there's no money left in them. Yeah, there is, dummy. Get out in the front of wherever the growth pattern is. Go beyond where these big boys are buying in the inner cities. Get out in the country and figure out the growth pattern and buy a cheaper piece of property with fewer units, with lower rents, and make money there. And then as the city catches up to you, maybe you'll become a multimillionaire before you die with that property, just from that property. Yeah. In the meantime, you're living off of cash flow. Here's the theory. You bought the property, the little mom and pop storage, or you built one, 10 miles outside of town in a little area that has some population or heavily traveled highway. And your mortgage is going down with every payment you make, and the rents are going up with every year that goes by. Mm-hmm. And you look up in 10 years and there's a massive spread. You don't even need a job anymore.
Right. That's right. I mean, I think a big part of it is you're also staying active. And when the more active you get those opportunities where a broker just call you out of the blue and says, hey, do you want to buy this great deal? Or, hey, there's going to be some storage units built out 5 miles outside of the city limits here. Do you want to get in on something like that? I mean, but part of it is taking that first step and becoming active. You have to be active. If you're sitting at a job that you hate every single day, it's very, very tough to get those deals. Because nobody will ever bring it to you. You're not in the
Yeah,
market.
you sit out of the blue. Yeah, they come right out of the blue after you've talked to 500 realtors. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right.
Unless you go talk to some realtors, nobody even knows you exist, or send out something. But so, or get with your city planning, or get with city planning in different little local cities, little smaller towns. You may not want to go to the big town. Go to another town that has population 70,000, pretty close to you. Figure out what's going on there. There's a subdivision scheduled to put in 3,000 houses just 5 miles outside of this town. Maybe that's a good place to find a trashy little piece of land before everyone finds out that it's going to get built, and go buy it 2 acres for a storage facility.
Yeah.
Get out ahead of everything.
But you know what, though? I think part
Learn
of it
about
is
subdivisions before they've even broken the first rock.
Yeah.
Learn about subdivisions that are going in before they've even mowed one tree down, and get involved, or go further out, or go by a lake or by parks or some scenic thing where there's RV parks, and find a mom and pop storage that's being mismanaged because they're old. They don't even have a website, for God's sake, because old people didn't understand technology. This is why they're 50% full, because I looked for them, their website, asked them, what's your .com name? What's your website name? They go, website? We don't deal with no stinking websites. I said, okay, well, shit. That's why they're 20% low in their rents and 50% full. No one can find them.
Yeah. I think a big part of it is that, like I said, you got to be active. You got to stay connected. You got to stay engaged with the community. And it takes work. It takes effort. All those are brilliant.
Well, in
advice.
1991, I started with 15 little boat stalls. Thought, man, this is a great rental thing. I bought 18 right next to it. Then I bought a 34 unit. And then I bought a 54 unit. And those mom and pops all seller financed me. I didn't have to find the money. I just had to find the down payment, which I'll tell you, a lot of those down payments came from my credit card because there was enough margin to pay them and to pay my credit card till I could get it turned around.
Nice.
So, and with every piece of cash flow that you pick up, it gets easier to maneuver because you have money coming in to float deals until you get them fixed up and stuff. With every transaction you get, the hardest one you'll do is the first one. Everything gets easier with every transaction, no matter who you are.
It's like every deal I've done, whether it's industrial, whether it's multifamily, single family, the first one is always the hardest. It gets easier. The more you do, the easier they get. Absolutely.
So I built my first storage out of the ground, 283 units, 2.8 million. It was supposed to be 1.8 million or no, 2.2 million, but me and my partner were going to general contract it ourselves. It took forever because we didn't know how to general contract. The lesson of the story was go find a general contractor that only builds storages. That's all he builds. Pay him to be your general contractor and give him 10% of whatever the cost plus is, cost plus. And we would have paid him 70 or 80 grand and he probably would have saved me $400,000 in mistakes I made.
Yeah. It's worth paying. It's worth paying for the expertise. It's worth paying for the guidance every single time. Every time.
I'm still learning lessons every day. How about you?
Oh yeah, I do. I still read my books and I still listen to podcasts and shows, and absolutely, this is a never-ending quest, to be better, to keep growing, and that's in order to build success in this business or any business for that matter, you have to keep doing it. And I think that's early when I was a young man, I was one of those guys that I thought, I was a know-it-all, right? And that was a totally wrong attitude. Wrong attitude. So, but we covered a lot of stuff here today, Mitch.
I had the same attitude when I finally, but it dawned on me after a couple of years at the RIA or whatever, like that everyone was coming to me asking me questions, and there was nobody for me to go to ask a question. You know what I mean? Because there wasn't anybody attending that was doing more than me. Yeah. And I figured out, and I'm glad I did. I was in the wrong room. I needed to be in the room where I was the smallest guy. If I was going to take care of me, you know what I mean?
Right. That's right. I need to find some bigger rooms. That's my goal for this year. Find some bigger rooms. But we covered a lot of stuff here today. So for the person listening right now, what sort of bulletproof advice would you offer to them?
Learn to get involved and do whatever you can for the people that are already in the business that you want to learn how to do. I mean, try to spend as many hours with you can, even if you don't get paid. I mean, it's a classic Kiyosaki work for knowledge. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You know, if you have some money and you can pay for some knowledge and speed that up, or, you know,
That's right.
then do that. But don't expect things to happen overnight. Understand, you know, to get your degree in college, you got to go 4 years and hand over $100,000. Why are you treating the education to make money in any industry like it should somehow not cost $100,000? What?
That's right.
I mean, when you get out of college in 4 years, 95% of the time, they haven't taught anybody how to do anything to make money, depending on what you chose to study. I mean, you can actually get through college and have courses on your resume like basket weaving and, you know, philosophy and things that don't really help you make money. Why is it you think you can go learn an industry and become a multimillionaire and you don't want to dish out $100,000? Now, you probably don't have to dish out $100,000, but you got to dish out something.
Yeah.
Right? Or the street's going to charge you.
Yeah, I think the educational system, the system is what exactly it is devised to get people in, and you're of course paying a school, right? And that's the whole premise behind it. It's not so much teaching you how to get rich or teaching you how to build wealth. It's more like giving you a certificate. That's the goal, right? Two different goals. Right, it depends on what the person wants to do. I'm taking it from a guy who's
they're actually churning out workers.
Yeah, workers, exactly. The workers and soldiers.
They're actually
workers
churning
and
out
soldiers.
workers.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Workers and
That's right.
soldiers. I mean, that's really what they churn out the most of. Now, the problem is they can't curtail the entrepreneurial spirit. So the true entrepreneurs that were born with it, or that are hell bent on being an entrepreneur, they're going to come out of that college and do what they're going to do. But most of them are workers or soldiers. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that either.
No, there's nothing wrong with that at all. And, hey, listen, we need doctors, we need lawyers, we need people to get things done. Absolutely. Not everybody wants to do the type of stuff that you and I do. It's early on. Yeah, we're working 80 hours a week, 120 hours a week. That's just what we do, and people don't want to do that for decades on end. It's hard work, but I enjoy doing it. I love doing what I do, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Would not have it any other way. It's I'm sure you feel the same way.
Well, man, I appreciate the time here.
Yeah, you bet. Now, guys, if you want to reach out to Mitch, check out his website. He's got a lot of great material there, a lot of coursework that can really help you do exactly what he was talking about in today's show. Okay, so check out his stuff. You can reach him via his website at 1000houses.com. We'll include a link in the description as well. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.
You've been listening to the Bulletproof Cash Flow Show. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We know we had fun. Make sure to visit our Apple Podcast page and leave us a 5-star review. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. For real estate coaching, events, and resources, hit up bulletproofcashflow.com. Till next time.
No information in this episode should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Any investment opportunities mentioned on this show are limited to accredited or sophisticated investors. Any investments will only be made with proper disclosure and subscription documentation and subject to all applicable laws. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice.